Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
It's Friday, December 13th, 2019. On today's Daily Detroit, we're going to visit the pheasants.
Well, actually, we're headed to a brewery named after a pheasant, Brewery FaisAn. It's over on Beaufait Street in Detroit's Islandview neighborhood. And the beer, it was really good.
So good, Sven. So I'm glad I got to go on this one. So good.
We did the hard work of afternoon drinking, so you don't have to. Okay, we are down in the brand new Brewery FaisAn with owner Rachel Szlaga, who owns the place with her husband, Paul. And Rachel, welcome to Daily Detroit.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for having us and for pouring us a selection of your beers here. So first of all, congratulations on opening. You've been open since I think October, right?
Correct. We opened October 24th.
Tell us the story about Brewery FaisAn. This is French for pheasant, right? Which is kind of your logo and everything. And we are here on Beaufait Street, of course. But give us the story of how this came to be.
Sure. Pheasants are kind of known to be all over Detroit. So when we purchased this property about 4 years ago, we were seeing them around. So that kind of helped us cement our decision on naming the Brewery FaisAn. Also, there's a lot of French names around Detroit, obviously. And because we wanted to do a Belgian beer focus and they speak French in a lot of Belgium, we figured it all played together. Paul and I moved down here over a decade ago. I actually came down to the city to go to Wayne State in 2005, and we just completely fell in love with Detroit. And we basically started homebrewing 10 years ago after winning a chili cook-off at Coonan and Warren, put on by a homebrew club out there, and just really fell in love with brewing. And as Detroiters, there weren't a lot of breweries, and the ones that we had been around for a very long time. This was before Batch opened and some others. And
Sure.
And so we just kept kind of seeing let's see what this would take for us to do it. No one's doing a Belgian focus, and that's what we were the most passionate about. So we started exploring those ideas, and it was basically a 10-year journey to get open from that point.
You bought this building actually 4 years ago, so quite a while. What was this building before?
So it was just storage. Originally, when it was built in the 60s, it was a rigging company. They did crane rigging in here. So you'll notice there's no beams or structural supports throughout, which is nice because it's big open space that we could design how we saw fit. So that was appealing to us. And you don't really find warehouses in this size range much.
How big are we talking about?
We're at 9,000 square foot. We really only renovated 6,000 of it. And we also, when we purchased 30 feet lot to the side, which we have some parking and a little patio space as well. A lot of warehouses that we had looked at previously were either a lot bigger or too small. And a lot of the advice that we were given along the way was to start bigger. So we knew kind of a range of what size we wanted. And when we found this place, it was kind of too good to be true almost. And yeah, the family that owned it, they own a lot of the property across the street and up the block. And we were talking to them about leasing the space, and then they realized how much investment they would need to do to get it white boxed. They got a couple quotes for a new roof, and then suddenly the tune changed a little bit to, do you want to buy it? And that actually was perfect for us because owning the building helped us leverage our financing and everything. So it was an important step.
So this is a pretty interesting location here on Beaufait in the Islandview neighborhood, kind of out of the way, off the beaten path, I guess you could say. And I'm just thinking back, especially 4 years ago, this was way off the beaten path. Was this a case of this is kind of what you guys could afford, or was this also, are you sort of putting a bet on this neighborhood as kind of being sort of a new, up and coming place in Detroit?
It's definitely a combination of a few things. When we first started talking about a brewery, we were living in Corktown, and we were looking at Corktown, and we got priced out of there pretty quickly. And honestly, it was about opening a brewery for us, but it was also about being in Detroit. So we didn't limit our search to any specific area of Detroit. We sort of just went where there was opportunity. We looked at properties kind of all over the place. In our opinion, breweries have a unique ability to draw people off the beaten path because people seek out breweries to visit. So we didn't feel as much pressure to be in a corridor that was already developed or, already had foot traffic or something like that. So part of that also stemmed from not being wealthy people. Like we had a budget, that we really needed to stick to. So, we needed to find something that was doable for us. It was very important for Paul and I to maintain ownership fully. So we don't have any partners. It's just us, which is kind of wild that we were able to pull that off, honestly, knowing all that we know now. But,
and you were saying your husband, Paul, has a 9-to-5 job during the days, obviously, right?
correct. And he's going to hang on to that job as long as he can because we definitely need it right now. So being brand new.
Tell us a little bit about your beers. You're kind of leading with Belgian style.
We've always loved Belgians. Like I said before, there wasn't a brewery in the city doing Belgians. There are a couple really good ones in the state. We used to frequent Bastogne and Royal Oak when it was around, and obviously like Brewery FaisAn. Yeah, we just were interested in bringing that palette to Detroit and kind of having a location that was making beer that we like to drink. So I think that's a lot of times with entrepreneurs, like there's something missing where you are at, where you want to be, and you got to fill that void. So we're going to always try to have at least half, if not more, of our menu be Belgians. So right now we have 10 beers. We open with 7. 5 of them are Belgians. And we have a German style, an English style, and 3 American style beers. And we're just going to keep growing from there. The feedback's been really amazing so far. So people have been pretty much all positive reviews, which is pretty awesome.
That's great. Yeah, I saw that you've been open long enough to get some Yelp and Untapped reviews and everything. What's your capacity here, like for production?
So we ended up buying used equipment. It actually came from Livonia. It was Liberty Street Brewing's production facility.
Did they go out of business or?
No, they own a brew pub in Plymouth, and that's their primary business. They'd opened the production facility to manage and fulfill their distribution contracts, basically. And that was the side of the business that they were no longer enjoying when we met them. And they just essentially wanted to offload that piece of the business. So it was sort of a right place, right time, because we were looking for equipment that was the same size as what they were trying to sell. So it was just a matter of running into the right person and making a couple of phone calls, and it somehow worked out, which was really good because it saved us a nice chunk to get going. But it's 15-barrel system with 30-barrel fermenters. So far, our average batch size has been 10 to 15 barrels. And so we're not filling the fermenters yet because, we wanted to open with a lot of styles and not just, make a ton of one beer. We are planning on self-distributing as long as we can because that's the easiest thing to do right now, the way the laws are. But you have to be under a certain barrels per year to be able to do that. So we're gonna get into that shortly, but hopefully get some kegs around town and see what happens from there.
Right. You were saying that right now you're strictly on-premise sales, right? But you're looking to expand that a little bit in the near term?
Correct. So right now we're just selling beer in the tasting room, either by the half or full pour. And we just added on 16-ounce canning. So we can do to-go cans and 4-packs or singles of any of the beers we offer. We have done a couple kegs out to events and things like that, but we would like to start getting a couple contracts around town. We have some interest at certain bars, and doing it all ourselves, so we can be really picky on who gets the beer. We want to make sure it's someone who, cleans their beer lines and treats beer right. It's nice to be small because you can control, basically everything.
Ultimately, is your goal though to pair with a distributor when you get big enough and sell your beers around the state, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. That model is sort of really difficult right now. There's been a lot of news stories recently about closures and big established brands having issues with that, and I believe a lot of that is due to the distribution laws in Michigan. Other states are different and are seeing much faster and better growth than we are here. So I think that's a lot to do with it. Recently, Eastern Market Brewing did that campaign to petition to try to raise the self-distribution, and there's a reason they were doing that. The state of Ohio's limit is way higher than ours, and they're doing great down there. So we're like the lowest cap on distribution of any, Midwestern state, and it's definitely had an effect on us. And really, you're always going to make the most money on the beer direct to consumer out of your tasting room. So it was very important for us to create a really cool space that people want to hang out in. So we spent a lot of time and energy focusing on making the taproom cool. We want to be here, so we think people will too. And that's definitely our focus right now. And everything else is added on, basically.
What kinds of things are you doing to get people in the door? I know you don't do food here, but I think you're inviting food trucks, like at least on the weekends and things like that, right?
Yes, definitely. There's actually several breweries in the area now that do food trucks, so it's a little easier now than it used to be. It's becoming more commonplace. So we are getting on a couple of rotations for the really popular ones, and we're starting out trying to get everyone basically Friday and Saturdays, because that's our busiest night. We want food truck to make money too. So we're trying to, make everybody happy. We also really want to focus and partner with other small businesses in the city that are trying to get started. Last weekend we had Coriander Kitchen here, and they're trying to open a restaurant in an old marina on the east side, right at the corner of the river and Alter. Yeah, I mean, any way we can help.
All right, very cool. And we should talk a little bit about the interior and sort of set the scene for our listeners. You've got a nice checkmark shaped bar, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe the shape. Hockey stick. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay. I read that the furniture here, these are all from reclaimed wood, from what I understand.
Yeah, so our good friends Claire and Wayne, who run Mutual Adoration and Post Detroit, they had the opportunity to reclaim wood from the Packard Plant and design some beautiful tables for us, and they're just gorgeous. And then the chairs that we have are real vintage 60s and eBay find of Paul's. Nice. So we love those too. And then the bar, concrete bar top that Paul and I and some friends poured ourselves, and we tiled everything. So anywhere that we could put our own sweat equity into this business, we did that. And we're really happy with just how it turned out.
It's going to be really nice. I don't know if you had any opportunity, having opened in October, to use the patio, but that's going to certainly add a new element when the weather turns, right?
Yeah, it definitely will. And we just have a guy that started a mural outside too, so it'll have some kind of eye-popping color when you turn up from Lafayette onto the block, which is nice because we don't have much visibility yet. We just have a little sandwich board sign we pull out front. And like I said before, it's a destination. It's not too hard now because everyone has GPS on their phone. They can figure it out, but definitely get some funny jokes from people who get dropped off by Lyft or Uber, and they're like, where are you taking me? Roll-up door as well. I think you're going there. It was really important for us to kind of open up the space. It was a pretty dark and damp warehouse when we bought it, and we figured if we put the glass roll-up door, that'd be a great way to bring light in and also visibility. And actually, right when we put that on, we started meeting all of our neighbors that were like, what's going on here? And people drive through here and think it's really quiet and desolate, but a lot of these buildings have active businesses inside, even though you can't really tell from the outside. And on top of that, you've got, lots of residential on Jefferson, as well as we're in proximity to Lafayette Park and West Village. And there are a lot of people living in Islandview still. So they've been kind of stopping in and telling us how excited they are to have a neighborhood bar finally, because there hasn't really been much over here for quite a while.
Every neighborhood needs a good bar, that's for sure. Which brings us to maybe the most important thing, which is the beer. That's why people are coming here, right? So you've generously poured us a selection of your offerings. What should we start with here?
So I poured, just to start us off, my 5 Belgians, which are a wit beer, a Belgo Pale, I call it. And then I've got a double, a triple, and a raspberry saison.
All right, so I'm going to start with the lightest color here, and this is which one now?
The Quiddity Wit Beer.
Okay, and so wit meaning wheat beer?
Yes, it's a wheat base, and then we did coriander and orange peel, which it's a lot of people really like it, but there's always that one person that's like, this is not what I think of wit beer should be.
I like coriander, and I definitely get the orange in there for sure. It's very citrusy, smooth, very smooth. What do I got going on here now?
So that's the Sanilac, which is our Belgo Pale Ale. So it's going to be a little sweet up front, a little malty in the middle, and a little hoppy in the finish.
And Sanilac as in the name of the town in Michigan.
Correct. So our beer names are kind of all over the place. They have meaning to Paul and I, but Sanilac is the location of a family cottage we have. Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
All right, bottoms up. Skull. Nice. You're right, very subtle on the hops. A lot of Belgian pales that I've tried are a little bit more aggressively hoppy, but this is nice. It's good.
Just a little bit of funkiness from the Belgian yeast. That's what I think always sets apart Belgian beers. You've got all those esters you get specifically from using Belgian yeast that mix interestingly especially when you apply it to something as simple as a pale ale recipe.
Yeah. It strikes me as a really nicely balanced beer. It's really good.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the next we have the double, and this one is definitely very popular with Belgian fans, but a lot of people who come in here and say, I've never liked a Belgian beer before, but I tried your double and I love that beer. So I think it's kind of approachable in that way. Doubles traditionally are like a little darker, a little maltier, a little sweeter. So I think it's a crowd pleaser for sure.
Malty. It's good. Like it.
And that one comes in at about 7.1% alcohol. So it's a little higher alcohol, but it doesn't have that alcohol flavor that you get sometimes with the higher ABV. Yeah. So it's a little deceiving in that way.
I definitely get the caramels in this one. Yum. This is a tough job, man.
Probably be hard to believe, but we had a lot of volunteers as we were building out the space for beer tasting. As I think the number one request, you guys need a beer taster.
While you're developing your recipes.
Right,
And are these just backups or?
This is a triple. This one's called False Dawn, clocking in at 8.5%. It is that traditional triple style, so it's golden, it's thick, it's strong, it's ours is definitely a lighter in color and body than like some of the other triples that are prolific in the area. It's more to style for what we would look for in a triple for our personal taste. Definitely like bump up the carbonation level a little bit on that style as well.
So I get like an aroma, this may sound crazy, but of like smoked meats, like almost like a barbecue grill or something.
I love this because my bartender last night told me she smelled olives.
Yeah.
And I smell
kind of briny almost.
Yeah, but I smell like pineapple when I smell it. Just so
we're all over the place. Yeah, but everybody brings something new to it.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing about beer. It's very subjective. But the thing about Belgian yeast and Belgian beers particularly is they offer really complex noses and flavors. So I think whatever your palate is what you're going to pick up on the most. Yeah.
That's a nice chewy beer. That's good. Very nice.
And then finally, for our last Belgian, this is number 5, we have the Periphery, which is our raspberry saison, coming in at 7.3% alcohol. It's a traditional saison recipe, and we dumped raspberry into it, and it fully attenuated down to almost 0, so it has very little residual sugar and sweetness, so it's a super dry fruit beer, which I think is pretty rare.
Yeah, you might expect it to be sweet, but it's not at all.
People tend to say like it smells like it's going to be sweet because they smell the raspberry in it. But then when you taste it, it's that sugar's not there. So
this would be a nice like warm weather quaffing beer when it's a hot summer day out. And are most of these going to be like year round? Or are you going to be kind of rotating in and out and trying new things? What's the plan there?
We don't really have a plan because, I think it's counterintuitive to start out with a flagship beer and like tell people what your best seller is. I think you kind of have to let your customers decide what they like. We've got obviously software to track what sells the best. So far, it's been that raspberry saison Periphery and then our coffee stout, which it is stout season. We opened right when the weather turned cold, so it kind of makes sense that one's selling really well. Sure. We did steep 10 pounds of ash coffee supply beans in that beer, and like we're sampling it, every couple hours to like see where we're at with levels, and we ended up deciding at 10:30 p.m. that it was ready for kegs. So we actually pulled an all-nighter to keg that beer. So I'm very relieved that it's selling well because it was a labor of love to make that one for sure.
All right, so last one I'm going to try is your coffee stout. Excited to try this one. Definitely smell the coffee beans from the glass. It's really nice, really roasted, chocolatey. Ooh, that's nice. I mean, being a coffee lover, and a beer lover, it's like, what's not to love about that one? That's good.
Yeah, I agree, and that one only clocks in at 5.1% too, so it's a little more sessionable for folks that want a few beers.
All right, well, thanks so much for all the tastings. Tell us, what times are you guys open? I mean, where can people find more information?
When we were getting ready to open the brewery, Paul learned how to code and built the website, and I did all the design for it. I also did design for our logo and all of the merch we have for sale and things like that. So please go to our website and check it out. It's breweryfaisan.com, and on it we've got some cool drop-down menus. We keep an updated draft list of all the styles and any announcements for what food we have coming up that weekend, things like that. We are always updating Facebook and Instagram with our latest, so find us on there as well at Brewery FaisAn. And we're open Tuesday through Thursday, 4 to 10, Friday, Saturday, noon to midnight, and Sunday, noon to 8. We are closed on Mondays.
Well, Rachel Szlaga at Brewery FaisAn, thanks so much for having us down and plying us with your beers.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
All right, friends, that's going to do it for today's show. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jared Stays. Thanks to our members who make this show possible. You can join them at patreon.com/Daily Detroit.
Remember that we love you, take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.